the United States government has raised fresh concerns over what it describes as widespread corruption in Kenya, warning that the vice continues to undermine fair trade and investment. The report now threatens Kenya's attraction of foreign direct investments and cross-border trade. NTV's Brian George Otieno now tells us what experts recommend to avert the obvious disrepute as they call out the graft.
President Donald Trump's administration noted that corruption in Kenya often manifests in customs processes, licensing procedures, and awarding of government tenders. It disclosed that these practices raise the cost of doing business and also create an uneven playing field that disadvantages foreign investors and companies contributing to capital flight. Experts now advise that while corruption must be fought, the negative image must not be upheld to deny Kenya investments.
If there's business to be made, really true, real business to be made, that private sector entrepreneurial spirit is going to drive through. Corruption is just laziness, right? And those who use corruption are doing it to cut corners. The right way to do things, totally possible in Africa, across every single market. You just need the right entrepreneurs matched with the right opportunities. They're going to do things right.
While this report puts Kenya's image and business environment to disrepute, the reality of trade imbalance between Kenya and the U.S. rears its head prominently. The U.S. goods trade surplus with Kenya was $131.9 million, a 285.4% increase over 2024. U.S. goods exports to Kenya totaled $990.8 million in 2025, up 28.5% from 2024. U.S. goods imports from Kenya totaled $858.9 million in 2025, up 16.5% from 2024. Total U.S. goods traded, that is exports plus imports with Kenya, was estimated at $1.8 billion in 2025. Kenya was 87th largest U.S. export market in 2025. Likewise, U.S. services trade deficit with Kenya was $192 million in 2024, a 29.2% decrease over 2023. U.S. services exports to Kenya totaled $781 million in 2024, up 18.7% from 2023. U.S. services imports from Kenya totaled $972 million in 2024, up 4.7% from 2023. The total U.S. services trade with Kenya was estimated at $1.8 billion in 2024, and Kenya was the 80th largest U.S. service export market in 2024.
Yes.
The clarion call from the Africa CEO Forum Nairobi Roadshow was to source more intra-Africa trade as the U.S. decries the corruption barrier on top of existing 10% tariffs on Kenyan exports to the U.S.
As Africans, we must understand that we have to become sustainable as possible, so that we can feed ourselves, we can manufacture for ourselves, we can develop medicines and healthcare for ourselves, we can create shelter for ourselves, and we can build economies that grow. This Middle East crisis today, right, has increased the prices of polymers, what you make plastic out of, fuel, so much that we now have to look for alternative solutions.
The U.S. government emphasized that left unchecked, corruption can undo the benefits of trade agreements, frustrate economic stabilization efforts, and weaken the integrity of international trading systems. While the report does not exclusively identify corruption as a persistent challenge only in Kenya, it highlights corruption as a major problem U.S. companies face in multiple countries.
However, the issue is to not let that affect the perception of the investability of African markets such as Kenya, because it gets too much visibility and too much noise vis-a-vis all the positive stories that are out there, all the positive investments, all the uncorrupt, completely productive investments which have created jobs, which are employing people, creating value and creating value chains across the continent. So my objective here would be not to ignore it, it's a serious issue, but to address it concretely and candidly.
Brian George Otieno, NTV, Nairobi.